Greetings. Welcome to day 2 recap of Autoforge. So we have been working on just trying to get the foundation of the engine in place. Since we're coming from Project Dig and we use the entity component system, there's a lot of stuff already there, but it's not what we actually want. So, with the entity component system, we have an entity which is solely an ID. We have components that are solely data. And then we have the systems that house all of the logic that operate on the components. And then we have this world that would track all of the component pools and associate entity IDs with the components inside of those pools. And so whenever we create a new entity, we just kind of reserve space for the components in each pool that that entity is going to be using, assign it to the entity. And then anytime we wanted to get access to a component for an entity, we would need to go to the world and request the component and provide the entity ID. Now, in this new world, we're doing a component-based system, which is a much simpler solution. It probably has less performance in some places, but it just simplifies the design of the engine significantly. And the reality is that this game is not going to be extremely performance heavy, so it's fine if we have something simpler. It will help with the development significantly. So we're just doing something similar to what I did for Korea, which is having an entity that will have a map of components. And so the components are stored on the entity, and the entity is the owner of those components. The components no longer live inside of a component pool. And so then anytime we want to get access to a component, as long as we have that entity, we can just say, hey, give me, get the transform component or get the render component. And it's right there, very easy for us to get. We don't have to go to the world and request it from there. And then we have, kind of similar to what we had for the world, we have an entity manager, which is the thing responsible for creating the entities. And so that means that we're going to need to be registering components to the entity manager, and then whenever we want to create a new entity, we will just copy an existing entity, which can either be like a prefab or something, it could be an existing entity. And we then will go through all of the components within that entity that we're copying and call the corresponding factory that we registered with that component, and that will create the new component, and we'll just assign all the data that we need to, and then go on a merry way. We'll create the component, kind of initialize it fully, and there's a few other things I'm trying to sketch out. There's the idea of having it so that the systems are the only things containing the logic, kind of like the entity component system. But ultimately, I think we're kind of deciding against that. So still kind of working on getting that all set up. And yeah, so it's still, rough figuring out exactly how things should be set up, but I did get it kind of compiling and kind of loading up there. As I said earlier, there's a lot of existing code that I'm trying to slowly update to use this new component-based system rather than the entity component system. And so right now I just removed a lot of it and just commenting out code, and then we'll slowly build up back to the point where we have parody of the code base that we did with the entity component system now for the component based system. So yeah, we'll just be continuing to work on that. I hope you guys are finding these recap videos interesting. I'm still trying to get a feeling for what makes sense, the pacing for things. So if you guys have any feedback, I really would appreciate that. Feedback, thumbs up if you like it, whatever, like just something to let me know the correct direction to go with this. But yeah, we'll figure it out. So thanks for watching. If you do want to see the live streams, you're welcome to join there, and I'll just keep making these. So yeah, thanks, and I'll see you tomorrow.